The last of the June heat was still trapped in the courthouse parking garage at 7:40 in the evening, the concrete holding warmth the way a kiln holds it, and the air smelled like motor oil and hot rubber, and something faintly sweet from the magnolia trees lining the street outside. Judge Nadine Coulter walked toward her car, with her blazer folded over one arm, a canvas tote bag from the public library in the other, and her reading glasses pushed up into hair she had let down from its courtroom pins. She looked, by her own estimation, like a woman who taught Sunday school and grew tomatoes, which was also true. Her shoes were sensible flats. Her blouse was untucked. She had spent 11 hours on the bench today, 6 of them on a money laundering case involving a chain of laundromats, and the irony had stopped being amusing around hour 3. She pressed the fob. Her car, a silver Lexus sedan she had bought used from a colleague's husband 3 years ago, chirped twice. The taillights flashed in the dim garage light. She set the tote bag in the trunk, alongside a box of case files and a pair of gardening gloves, and stood there for a moment, rolling her neck, listening to the vertebrae pop one by one like the small firecrackers. The Hargrove County Courthouse was a squat granite building in a town that had once been important enough to have a train station. Now it had a Walmart, 2 bail bondsmen, and a police department that operated out of a renovated furniture store on Main Street. Nadine had been assigned here by the Federal Circuit 18 months ago, part of a judicial rotation that nobody wanted, and she had made a kind of peace with it. The barbecue was excellent. The courtroom had good natural light, and people, for the most part, left her alone. She would remember that last thought later, how it felt like the kind of thing a person thinks right before the world decides to correct them. The patrol car was parked at the garage exit, angled across the lane so that leaving required either conversation or a very tight 3-point turn. Nadine slowed the Lexus and lowered her window. She could see the officer in the driver's seat, lit from below by his phone screen, his face blue and angular. He was young, maybe 32, with a buzz cut that showed the pink of his scalp and a jaw working over a piece of gum. His nameplate read Briggs. Officer T. Briggs. He did not look up immediately. She waited. 4 seconds. 7. 12. She tapped her horn once, lightly. He looked up then, and something in his face rearranged itself. It was subtle, the way a camera lens adjusts. His eyes moved from her face to her car, to her face again, and whatever calculation happened behind those eyes produced a result that made him open his door and step out slowly, hitching his belt, one hand resting on the butt of his holstered weapon, as though it were the arm of a familiar chair. "Ma'am," he said, "this is a restricted area after hours." Nadine looked at the garage around her. It was the same garage she had parked in every morning for a year and a half. Her assigned spot was 4C, 3rd level. There was a sticker on her windshield. "I work here," she said. She kept her voice the way she kept it on the bench. Measured, clear. The voice of someone who has learned that volume is the first thing people use against you. Briggs walked to her window and leaned down. His breath smelled like spearmint and something sharper underneath, like the metallic tang of energy drinks. He looked past her into the back seat, then at the tote bag beside her, then at her hands on the steering wheel. "Work here doing what?" he said. Not a question, a statement with a hook on the end. "I'm an employee of this courthouse," she said. He straightened up, put both hands on his belt. "License and registration," he said. She felt the familiar arithmetic begin, the one she had been doing since she was 16 years old. The calculation that every black person in America learns to run in the background like an operating system. Is this the moment? Is this the one? What is the cost of resistance versus the cost of compliance? She had made a career of studying the law, and the law was very clear about her rights, and she also knew that rights and survival were not always the same currency. She opened the glove box. She moved slowly and narrated her movements. "I am reaching for my registration," she said. "My license is in my wallet, in my bag." Briggs watched her the way a cat watches a door. When she handed him the documents, he held them under his flashlight, even though the garage had perfectly adequate lighting. He stared at her license photo, then at her, then at the photo again, as though he were trying to catch her in the act of being someone else. "This vehicle is registered to a Nadine Coulter," he said. "That's me." He looked at the license again. "You live on Sycamore Court?" "I do." "That's a nice neighborhood," he said, and the way he said nice made the word sound like an accusation. Nadine said nothing. She had sentenced men for less obvious tells than that. Briggs handed back the documents, but did not step away from the window. "How long have you worked in this building?" he said. 18 months. "Doing what, exactly?" "Cleaning staff leaves at 6, and there it was. The sentence that lived inside the other sentence. She felt it land in her chest the way a judge feels a verdict land in a courtroom. Not with surprise, with the heavy, specific gravity of confirmation. "I'm not on the cleaning staff," she said. "Then what are you?" He leaned in closer. His flashlight was in her eyes now, and she could see the tiny scratches on its lens, the smudge of a thumbprint on the chrome ring. "Administrative what? Filing?" She almost told him. The words were right there. "I am a United States District Judge, Article 3, confirmed by the Senate, appointed by the President." She could feel them stacked in her throat like coins. But something stopped her. Not fear. Something colder and more precise. The same instinct that made her wait in a courtroom until the silence did the work for her. "I would like to make the phone call," she said. Briggs laughed. It was not a performative laugh. It came from somewhere genuine, a place where the idea of this woman in this car making demands was authentically funny to him. "Ma'am," he said, "you can make all the calls you want after I verify you have authorization to be in this garage. Right now, I need you to step out of the vehicle." "On what grounds?" she said. "Trespassing in a government facility. I have a parking sticker on my windshield." He glanced at the sticker. "Could be stolen," he said. "Could be anyone's. We get a lot of that around here." He paused. "Especially lately." She understood the word especially. She understood lately. She understood the entire sentence that existed between those two words, the sentence he would never say out loud, because even he knew better than to say it in a place that might have cameras, though she suspected he had not thought carefully about whether it did. "Officer Briggs," she said, and she used his name deliberately, the way she used a defendant's name in court, to let them know they had been identified and would be remembered. "I am going to make a phone call now. You are welcome to wait." He put his hand on her door. "Step out of the car," he said. "I'm not going to ask again." She did not step out. She picked up her phone from the center console and dialed a number she knew by heart. She pressed the phone to her ear and maintained eye contact with Briggs the entire time, and what he saw in her eyes must have unsettled him, because his hand moved from the door to his belt, then back to the door, then to his belt again, like a man who keeps reaching for a weapon he is not yet sure he needs. The phone rang twice. A voice answered. "Hargrove County Police Department, Chief Morrison's line." "David," she said. "It's Nadine." On the other end, silence. "Then Judge Coulter," he said, and his voice had the particular stiffness of a man who has just been reminded that gravity is real. "What can I do for you, Your Honor?" Briggs heard the words coming through the phone. She watched his face the way she had watched 1,000 faces from the bench, the micro-expressions that precede comprehension, the half-second where the brain is still running the old program while the new information loads. His lips parted. His gum stopped moving. The flashlight dipped 6 inches. "I am sitting in my car in the courthouse garage," Nadine said into the phone, "and one of your officers is demanding I exit my vehicle because he has decided I do not belong here. His name is Officer T. Briggs. Badge number 471. She read the badge number off his chest. He watched her read it. He did not stop her. He had entered that particular paralysis that comes when a person realizes they are no longer the one writing the story. Chief Morrison's voice came through the speaker now, because she had switched to speakerphone without looking down. She did not need to look down. She was a federal judge. She had clerked for the 7th Circuit. She could work a phone. "Briggs," Morrison said. The name came through the speaker like a stone dropped into a well. "Briggs, are you there?" Briggs opened his mouth. He closed it. He looked at Nadine. He looked at the phone. He looked at the parking sticker on her windshield, and she watched him actually read it this time. Read the words, "Federal Judiciary," printed across the top in letters that were not small. "Chief," he said. His voice had changed register. It had gone up half an octave and back about 15 years, to a place where he was still someone who could be in trouble. "Chief, I was just conducting a routine." Morrison cut him off. "Judge Coulter," he said, "I am on my way. Do not move, Briggs. Do not say another word." The line went dead. Briggs took a step back from the car, then another. He removed his hand from his belt. He looked around the garage as if seeing it for the first time. The numbered spots, the reserved signs, the small brass plaque by the elevator that read, "United States District Court, Southern District, Hargrove Division." He had walked past that plaque. He had parked his cruiser 10 feet from it. Nadine watched him and saw something she had not expected. His hand was shaking. Not dramatically, not the way it happens in movies, but a fine tremor in his right hand. The flashlight hand, the kind of tremor that comes from the sudden withdrawal of certainty. And in that tremor, she saw something she recognized from her courtroom, from the faces of defendants who had genuinely not understood the weight of what they had done until the weight was actually on them. He was not afraid of consequences yet. He was afraid because the ground had moved. He took another step back. He looked at her. "Judge," he said, and the word sounded foreign in his mouth, like a word from a language he had studied but never spoken. She said nothing. She had learned a long time ago that silence after a verdict is not cruelty. It is respect for the verdict. The first vehicle arrived in 4 minutes. It was not a police car. It was a black Suburban with federal plates and 2 U.S. Marshals who had been assigned to courthouse security and were supposed to have gone home an hour ago, but had been doing paperwork. They pulled into the garage at a speed that made the tires bark on the concrete, and they were out of the vehicle before it had fully stopped, and they were not smiling. The second vehicle was Morrison's personal car, a department-issued Dodge Charger. He pulled in behind the Suburban and got out with the particular urgency of a man whose career is flashing before his eyes. He was 53, silver-haired, built like a retired linebacker who had kept most of it, and he was sweating through his polo shirt, despite the fact that the evening had cooled. "Your Honor," Morrison said. He walked past Briggs without looking at him, the way you walk past furniture. He went directly to Nadine's window. "Are you all right? Did he touch you? Did he draw his weapon?" "No," she said. "He did not draw his weapon. He asked me to exit my vehicle. He implied I was part of the cleaning staff. He suggested my parking sticker might be stolen. Morrison closed his eyes. He stood there for 3 seconds with his eyes closed, and in those 3 seconds, Nadine could see him running his own calculations. Legal exposure, civil liability, Federal Civil Rights Statute, Title 42, Section 1983, Pattern and Practice. The Department of Justice letterhead that would arrive in his office like a letter from God. He turned to Briggs. Badge, he said. Chief, I didn't. Badge. Gun. Keys. Now. Briggs unclipped his badge. His fingers fumbled with the pin, and it took him 2 tries, and watching him struggle with it, Nadine thought of all the times she had seen men in her courtroom try to undo something that could not be undone, the physical awkwardness of surrender. He placed the badge in Morrison's open hand. He unholstered his weapon, checked the safety, and handed it over grip first. He took his keys from his belt and added them to the collection. Morrison held all of it in one hand, the entire apparatus of Briggs's authority, and it looked small. You are suspended without pay effective immediately, Morrison said. You will be contacted by Internal Affairs. You will not speak to the media. You will not contact Judge Coulter. You will not enter any county facility. Do you understand? Briggs nodded. He looked at the U.S. Marshals, who were standing with their arms crossed in the particular way that marshals stand when they want you to know they are armed without telling you they are armed. He looked at Nadine one more time, and then he said something that surprised her. I have a daughter, he said. She's 9. She did a report on Thurgood Marshall last month. She got an A. He said it quietly, not as a plea, not as a strategy, but as a fact that had just occurred to him, and that seemed, in this moment, to be the only true thing he could find in himself. Then he turned and walked toward the garage exit, past his angled cruiser that was still blocking the lane, and he did not look back. Morrison watched him go. Then he turned to Nadine. Your Honor, he said, I cannot express... David, she said. She used his first name because she was tired and because formality was a tool, and she did not want to use tools right now. How many complaints does he have? Morrison hesitated. The hesitation told her everything. 7, he said, in 4 years. Any discipline. 2 written warnings. 1 mandatory counseling session that he attended for 20 minutes. She nodded. She started her car. The engine caught on the first try, the way it always did, because she maintained it carefully, because she maintained everything carefully, because she had learned a long time ago that carelessness was a luxury. She would not be extended. I want the body camera footage on my desk by 9 a.m., she said. And David, when the DOJ calls, and they will call, do not make the mistake of thinking this is about one officer. She pulled out of the garage and onto the street. The magnolias were blooming in the dark, their white flowers like small moons caught in the branches. She drove home to Sycamore Court and sat in her driveway for 10 minutes, listening to the engine tick as it cooled, smelling the cut grass from her neighbor's lawn. The investigation that followed was federal and thorough and without mercy. The Department of Justice opened a pattern and practice investigation into the Hargrove County Police Department that lasted 14 months. 17 officers were disciplined, 4 were terminated. 3 faced criminal charges for civil rights violations in cases unrelated to Nadine's, but uncovered during the probe. The town council approved a $6.8 million settlement fund for 11 plaintiffs who had filed complaints over the previous decade, complaints that had been marked resolved and filed in a cabinet that no one opened. Briggs was charged with deprivation of rights under color of law, a federal offense. He pleaded guilty to a lesser charge and received 18 months probation, 200 hours of community service, and a lifetime ban from law enforcement. His police certification was revoked by the state. He took a job at his brother-in-law's HVAC company in a town 40 miles away. His daughter, the one who had written the report on Thurgood Marshall, was 10 by the time the case was settled. She did not do another school report on a judge. Morrison retired 6 months early. He did not fight it. At his going-away gathering, which was held in the break room of the converted furniture store and attended by 11 people, he told his deputy that the worst part was not the investigation. The worst part was that he had known about the complaints and had filed them under the belief that they were manageable, that they were the cost of doing business. He said this while holding a piece of sheet cake on a paper plate, and he did not eat the cake. Nadine was asked to speak at a judicial conference in Atlanta 4 months after the incident. She stood at a podium in a hotel ballroom that smelled like carpet cleaner and recirculated air, and she said something that the legal blogs would quote for years. She said, "The law does not eliminate prejudice. The law creates consequences for prejudice, and consequences require that someone be willing to pick up the phone." But that is not the image that stayed with her. The image that stayed with her was Briggs' hand, the tremor in it, the flashlight beam wavering on the garage wall, 6 inches of unsteady light that told her everything about the distance between authority and certainty. She thought about that hand when she sat on the bench. She thought about it when she issued sentences. She thought about it when she drove into the courthouse garage each morning and passed the brass plaque and parked in spot force and walked to the elevator and pressed the button and waited for the doors to open. On the last day of the DOJ investigation, a Tuesday in October, Nadine left the courthouse at her usual time. The garage was quiet. Her footsteps echoed on the concrete. She reached her car, pressed the fob, heard the 2 chirps. She set her tote bag in the trunk. She stood there for a moment, rolling her neck, listening to the vertebrae pop. No one stopped her. She drove home through streets lined with magnolias, dropping their petals like slow confetti, and the radio was playing something she did not recognize, and her windows were down, and the air smelled like October, like wood smoke and dry leaves, and the particular sweetness of a season that knows it is ending.